November 12th, 1942. The Western Desert. A dust-choked track near a shattered British supply column. A small American vehicle sat where its crew had abandoned it in haste. Standard Wehrmacht practice said to torch it or leave it. The reconnaissance officer said something else. Bring our best mechanic. See if this thing can be made to run. The hood came up. The first surprise was not the size of the engine, but the way it invited you in. Everything was laid out for hands, not theory. Color-coded wires, labels where they mattered, spark plugs within easy reach, a simple oil bath air filter that could be cleaned with gasoline and patience. The placard on the dash read, Willys MB. The Americans called it a Jeep. The senior mechanic had 2 decades of experience with German vehicles. None of them looked like this under the hood. The Go Devil 4-cylinder displaced 134 cubic inches. It produced about 60 horsepower at roughly 4,000 revolutions per minute. By German standards, unimpressive. By field standards, brilliant. It was simple, it was reliable, and it was meant to be built fast. He tried his wrenches. Everything fit. American standard sizes. No eccentric fasteners. No specialty tools. Bolts that matched bolts on the next Jeep, and the one after that. The philosophy was plain. Make every part interchangeable. Make the thing easy to service by a man with basic training. The officer returned. Can we use it? The mechanic did not praise. He pointed. Transfer case here. One lever for 4-wheel drive. Another for low range. Simple. No complicated choreography. Our Volkswagen Type 82 Kübelwagen is clever. It is light. It sips fuel. The air-cooled engine has no radiator to leak. But it is rear-wheel drive. In deep sand, that is a handicap. The Jeep powers all 4 wheels whenever needed. They put fuel in it. They cleaned the points. It started. The reconnaissance section drove it into the dunes where Kübelwagens needed momentum and luck. The Jeep crawled through at walking pace. The low range made the difference. Leaf springs thumped. Crude, yes, but tough. A frame that looked overbuilt by German standards absorbed the punishment without complaint. Over 3 days, the Africa Corps mechanics ran their own tests. Overloaded runs, soft sand, ruts and rocks. Routine tasks stripped to minutes because parts were designed to come off. A fuel pump swap with a single wrench. A generator change without removing half the engine bay. It seemed as if the vehicle had been designed backward from the field, not forward from the drawing board. Word spread. Officers came. So did skeptics. The pattern was predictable. Doubt. Curiosity. Then silence as the implications settled in. One supply officer, who had worked in German automotive plants before the war, said it plainly. We chase perfection. The Americans chase production. In total war, production wins. He tapped the engine block. Cast to broad tolerances, acceptable performance, but a line worker can assemble it fast. Stamped body panels, not pretty. But you can make them in a factory that yesterday made refrigerators. The Americans have standardized everything. The lesson is not about beauty. It is about quantity and speed. Numbers told the rest of the story. The United States would build hundreds of thousands of Jeeps. Germany would build tens of thousands of Kübelwagens. Each Jeep could borrow parts from another Jeep without hesitation. Tanks, trucks, half-tracks, and command cars shared bolts, fittings, and electrical connectors across families of vehicles. A spare part in a depot fit more than one machine. That is how you feed an army that moves. The mechanics wrote reports, drawings, measurements, notes on strengths and weaknesses. They praised the Jeep's durability and the clarity of its manuals. They noted that a farm boy could read the maintenance guide and do the job. They conceded what training films had not. The Americans were not careless. They were practical. Context filled in the rest. 2 years earlier, the U.S. Army had asked American industry for a light reconnaissance car. The deadline for a prototype was 75 days. American Bantam delivered one in 49. Willys and Ford refined the design into something that could be manufactured by the tens of thousands. Camp Holabird in Maryland tested the vehicles hard. The result was the Willys MB and the Ford GPW. Identical specifications. Interchangeable parts. 2 factories making one standardized machine. Captured vehicles multiplied the lesson. By early 1943, German units in North Africa had seized dozens of jeeps. Informal networks of mechanics swapped advice and scavenged components. Every time they opened a hood, the same arrangement greeted them. The same wiring, the same fasteners, the same layout. Predictability became a force multiplier. Then came May 13, 1943. The surrender in Tunisia. Hundreds of thousands marched into captivity. Their journey showed them the other half of the American equation. Trucks by the hundreds. Liberty ships launched in weeks at coastal yards. Trains that ran on exact timetables. At depots, young mechanics performed maintenance with calm speed. A sergeant with basic German said, "We write the manuals so a 6th grader can follow them. Color-coded. Labeled. Step by step. If it breaks, anyone can fix it. If it cannot be fixed, we replace it. We can afford to." A German mechanic asked, "How many jeeps do you build?" The sergeant shrugged. "Thousands every week." He did not know the exact figure. He did not need to. The piles of crates, the rows of vehicles, and the steady flow through the motor pool told the truth. Another conversation filled in more detail. A soldier who had worked at Ford before the war spoke of Willow Run in Michigan. A bomber plant under one roof. A B-24 Liberator completed about every hour at peak. Mass production broken into simple tasks. One worker, one job. Repeated until the line moved itself. Apply the same logic to trucks and jeeps, and you get output that does not stop. In Europe, British and Commonwealth units had already voted with their feet. Long-range desert group patrols favored the jeep for raids and reconnaissance. They stripped windshields, mounted Vickers guns or a Browning, carried extra fuel and water. The jeep took the punishment and kept rolling. The Soviet Red Army, supplied through Lend-Lease, put jeeps to work as liaison vehicles, artillery prime movers for light guns and command cars. The same pattern repeated. Ease of use, easy repair, quick training. German engineers could point to real strengths on their side. The Kübelwagen was clever off-road for a 2-wheel drive car because it had reduction gears, lightweight, and excellent ground clearance. German tanks featured thick armor and powerful guns. German optics were superb. None of that erased the basic arithmetic. If the enemy can field 5 vehicles for every one of yours and keep them running with fewer kinds of parts, the balance tilts fast. At a prisoner camp in Texas, German mechanics staffed the motor pool. They learned American habits day by day. Diagnose quickly. Use what you have. Replace instead of rebuild when time matters more than elegance. Cannibalize a dead vehicle to keep 2 others alive. Put in a requisition and expect the part to arrive in days, not weeks. Process dozens of vehicles by following the same repeatable steps. The discipline was not ornamental. It was practical. The invasion of Normandy made the logic visible at continental scale. June 6, 1944. Thousands of ships. Thousands of aircraft. Hundreds of thousands of men. In the first waves, Jeeps rolled down ramps onto beaches and causeways. Within weeks, the lanes behind the front were choked with the same small vehicles carrying messages, hauling ammunition, towing small guns, and ferrying officers to where decisions had to be made. Each one a piece of a larger system that valued interchangeability over perfection. Back in the camp, a German mechanic watched American soldiers load a convoy. A private drove each jeep up a ramp with no drama. Dozens loaded in less than an hour. He counted without numbers. This single operation moved more light vehicles than his division had possessed in North Africa. The scene was ordinary for the Americans. That was the point. Ordinary repetition, scaled across a continent, becomes power. The Jeep did not win the war by itself, but it embodied the way the United States fought. Design for manufacturability. Train for adequacy. Standardize everything. Trust the mechanic with a clear manual and a well-stocked parts room. Accept a small loss in theoretical performance to gain a decisive advantage in production and sustainment. The Wehrmacht mechanics who first drove that captured Jeep did not bow to American engineering. They recognized something different, a machine built for reality, and a nation organized to make not one of them, but hundreds of thousands.